Alrighty, so hello everyone. My name is Jasmine, and today I will be talking to everyone about survivor experiences at domestic violence agencies. And so, before I start, a little bit about me. Um, I am from Stockton, California, and I have lived here my entire life. And I am attending UC Davis at the moment, and I am a biological sciences major. And then this is for my topic this summer on trauma and healing. So let's. So, one key word you'll hear me talk about throughout this presentation is domestic violence, which is also known as intimate partner abuse. And it is known as the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior as part of a systematic pattern of power and control perpetrated by one intimate partner against another. And now that you know this, let's go over the existing literature to see what knowledge is already out there. And the first really big point is that many folks do not know much about domestic violence and the resources out there. And in a multi-state study, many participants identified understanding of domestic violence as a need, and over 70% of participants who completed the survey stated that they needed to know more about domestic violence in general. And the second major point is that service staff are extremely impactful on survivor experiences. And this means that staff need to be respectful of all identities and backgrounds. And this includes, but is not limited to, sexual orientation, religious views, racial background, and disabilities. And these staff need to be well trained and equipped to address all situations. And when they are well trained to address these types of situations and any type of situation that they come across, it provides a safe and calm experience for community members seeking help. And this isn't the case for all agencies. I do want to mention that studies have identified that there are current social service systems that re-traumatize survivors and replicate tactics of abuse similar to those existing in relationships with interpersonal violence. And so that's why it's very important that staff are welcoming and respectful and create an environment that is comfortable and promotes healing. And the third point is that sometimes these agencies lack the resources to accommodate everyone who comes to their organization. And a 2019 statistics study shows that in one day in 2019, domestic violence shelters in California served over 5,644 adults and children, but still over 1,200 people were denied service because they didn't have enough resources to accommodate everyone who came through. And so that is what I have gathered from the existing literature. And so now the question is, why am I doing this project? And there is little to no current research for the Central Valley. And in these studies that in the literature that I have read through, they are not specifically for the Central Valley, and it may not be entirely representative of the community that we live in, and it does not look at the needs of our community, because we know that a Central Valley community may be different than a community 3,000 miles away on the other side of the country. And so this is why I have taken on this project this summer, to try to see if the needs are similar, if they are different, and what we are doing better and what we are already doing really well. And so let's take a look at the specific needs of our community. And in order to do that, I contacted about 12 community organizations throughout the Central Valley. And out of those 12 that I have called and emailed, I have formed 3 community partnerships at 3 different locations. And the first one is Kimberly Scott, who is the program director at the Valley Crisis Center in Merced. And she is the very first person I started talking to, and she offered her support and willingness to share out my survey and work with me on this project because she does believe that research like this is extremely important. And the Valley Crisis Center is a great place for people in academia who are really interested in studying this because she has worked with other institutions before. And so she has been extremely helpful and knowledgeable, and she has experience, and it's been really great working with her. And Jessie Nosanow, who is the direct services coordinator at the Center for a Nonviolent Community in Sonora. And Jessie Nosanow has given me so many words of affirmation and all her support because she does have experience in research like this, and she knows the process, and she has always been so kind to me every time I met with her, and she has provided so much support to me, and it has been a pleasure emailing her. And then we have Erica Letterbean, and she's the Chief Development and Communications Officer at the Family Services of Tulare County in Visalia. And she is the last person I emailed. And given the short time span of our project, she has been really helpful, and she has gotten back to me in such a timely manner, as time is everything in this program. And she has helped me share out my survey, and she really wants to know the results. And I'm going to tell her everything that I have received through my survey. And she has been really on top of sharing my survey for me, and it has been really helpful in getting my project done this summer. And moving on about my survey, this is a small snapshot of what I shared out in my survey. And these are just some of the questions that I have asked. As you can see, this is a Google form, but I did share it out through a printable PDF option as well. And I also made myself available to read the questions to people because Jessie Nosanow, she has mentioned that sometimes people don't have the highest education level, and it may be hard to go through all the questions on their own. So when someone reads it to them, it is way more helpful to receive responses, and it is way easier for them as well. So I did make that option available as well. And these questions right here, they are open-ended, but I also included some rating questions about their experiences as well. And before I go into the data that I have collected, I do want to mention the challenges I have experienced while collecting responses. And I want to start off by saying that domestic violence is a very sensitive topic, and the people who go through these organizations are extremely strong just for seeking help, because sometimes it is a dangerous process to try to get out of their dangerous situations. And many of these people are often going through their own personal crises, and it is difficult asking people to complete these surveys when they are going through so much. And so I want to say that I do not have that many responses, and you will see later on that I do not have graphs or charts or anything like that. I will not mention anything percentage-wise because it will not be representative of the population in our community if I have so few responses and I just generalize everything and just turn it into 50% when really it could just be 2 people. And so I do want to mention that ahead of time. And I also want to mention that with the current situation going on in the world, COVID has people working from home, and that is harder to meet with people as being online, an online presence is always tracked, and sometimes it is dangerous for people seeking help to be talking with um, advocates online and therapists online. So sometimes it is just not an option to be contacting them through the phone or through email or anything like that. And so I just want to be honest with everyone and just let all of you know that that is what I am working with this summer, but I completely understand because confidentiality is key and just making people feel comfortable because that is the most important part in the healing journey. And so, with my responses that I do have, I still want to briefly go over them because these experiences are still real and experienced and worth noting. Even if it is just one or two people mentioning this, it is 100% an experience that they have gone through, and it's very important to just mention it. So, in my literature and from my participant responses, I have made a few connections. And so there are similarities from literature pieces in the past and in different states and in the Central Valley. There are some similarities here, and these experiences are still common right now and in where we live. And one point that I want to mention is that the need for outreach and education is very evident, especially prior to that first incidence of violence. And one of my responses, this participant said that she didn't know something like this existed, and outreach at the time was just word of mouth. And it's very hard to hear about these things through word of mouth as well, just because domestic violence is something that a lot of people keep to themselves, and it's a very private experience, and many people are not comfortable with sharing that out to the world. And so it is very hard to hear about the resources that are available and what domestic violence even is, because not many people talk about it. And so I just want to mention that this is a common thing in the Central Valley, just as it is in other states as well. And another theme that I saw in the literature is that professional staff often foster positive experiences. And my response is they just say that what they have felt most comfortable with at these organizations are the staff and the feeling of not being judged, and how their advocate and their therapist helped them through the most difficult time of their life. And that's why it is so important to have staff that are well trained and well equipped to talk about safety and how to access court papers and how to fill them out. And all these things are extremely important to helping people heal and throughout their journey, making them feel comfortable through it all. And I do want to mention something different that has not been mentioned in any of the literature, and that is COVID. COVID has not been talked about in any of the literature because it is so new. And so I do want to mention that sometimes people are often working at home, and it is a little bit harder to access services, especially with the timing of it all. And sometimes things will just go slower than usual. And that is totally understandable with how things are right now. But even with these situations in mind, and given what we are working with, my participants did say that the services that they received was extremely helpful, and that they would definitely recommend these services to a friend who was looking for help as well. And that is very important because when one person has a positive experience, they will tell other people about their positive experience, and that just spreads that information around, and more people know how to access help and what is helpful. And going into next steps, I will share everything with my community partners as well as their respective organizations in the community. I want to share with them the responses. Even though I do have a few responses, it is still worth sharing. And I want to share with them my article, my presentation, just to let them know how I am doing, because they do believe that stuff like this is extremely important. Just getting the word out there is extremely important. Not to mention outreach, as I have looked at and as you guys have seen in the literature, as well as um, my participant responses. Outreach is extremely important, and sometimes people just don't know about these resources in the community. So I do want to bring that up with them and just let them know. And I do want to be a part of this moving forward, and I would be extremely excited to help out with any outreach projects and just work on collaboration and spreading the word to people all over the Central Valley. And as for sustainability, I do want to conduct annual check-ins that can help identify any progress and where we are not progressing as nicely as we should be. And this is just nice to just check in and just see how we are doing. And we are always going to be moving up, and this is very important. And I do want to continue this project and really take my time and look into this in the future as a senior project. And this is just a dip in the water for me right now, but I do want to make it a much more thorough research project in the future. And then I will be able to really get an idea that is representative of all people in the Central Valley. And that is it for my presentation. If anyone has any questions, this is the time to ask them.